The weather today was really amazing, nice and warm. So, what's the best way to celebrate this nice day? Let's make and watch another nice tutorial. The topic of today will be how can we take images like this wood texture and then in SketchUp create a material which we then can specify and apply to an object so it's textured. Obviously, there's a lot more how to manipulate and position, rotate, scale textures correctly, and that I will show you right now. So let's get going. Before we continue, please click on the download link inside the description for this video and download those two images, which we then will use on the Mac and PC side to create the materials with. So let me also first show you the differences and where we can access the material palette inside the Windows and the Mac side. So let's start with Windows. You can find actually the materials under Window Default Tray. This is now here the dialog for it. We have here Create Material. That's the button to make a new one. The Select Edit, forward and backwards. When you click on this, you always go back to this view that shows you the in-model materials which are being used. And here is a list of existing materials. But as a note, simply stay away from those. They are very generic and very old. You will learn how to create those by yourself. So to create a material, you click on Create Material. Then you get this dialog on Windows. We can give this a name, wood. Then use texture. Yes, please. I will select wood 2, open, or I could also click on this button here. Does pretty much the same. Then we can specify some more dimensions for the width and the height. If when I adjust, for example, the width, will the height actually go with it? Or will this actually be independently adjusted? You see there, this actually remained the same. And when I lock this again 2 inches, the software automatically scales the image for me. Very good. So on the Mac side, we will go to Window, Materials. Then you have here color wheel, etc. And there a brick, that's for the textures. So on the Mac side, materials are called textures. Here the same, the home button, the list, and then right click, new texture. I will select here the image, very good. I can give this a name and specify the dimension already, click OK, and there is now the material. Very good. With that explained, let's take a look at how we can now apply materials and then adjust materials or textures. So here, let's drag this onto this geometry. Pretty cool. Now there we have the veneer applied to various sides. It automatically rotates. If I select the object, right click, there seems to be no command here to really manipulate the position of or the rotation of the texture. Here we have groups, and then here we have components. So when I apply this to the components, interesting, the material does not show up actually on the other components. And here also we see a seam. Basically what this means is this is one end and the start of the same image. When this is a component, shouldn't this actually be the same material? Meaning, because when I go in and added actually this component, so I'm moving the geometry, you see that geometry and other components updates too, but why does the material not update? So what we actually did here by dragging the material onto a group or component, we committed a really big mistake in SketchUp. While this is possible to do, it is really not very good. It's not a very good way how to do this. The correct way, or the better way, will be by not associating a material to a group or component, but by only associating the material to a face. So how do we do this? Well, we go to the select command, then select our object, double click. See, now we are actually editing the geometry, not the group. And then we can just drag this onto individual faces, or double click everything so it's selected and then drag it onto it. Very nice. Okay. Now click outside. Let's go to this component here. Double click and double click or triple click, and then we just add it. Or we can also use the paint bucket. That works too. Click outside. Oh, look at that. This is updated. Let's do another test. Double click, select this front face, and then I drag this one onto it. Ha, you see? It automatically updates. Very good. So you see already here what the difference is when I add the material to the face, or if I add the material to the object. Oh, interesting. You see, it doesn't even work. So that is why number one rule, never drag a material onto an object or component. We only do this to the face when we edit the group or the component. Good. With that done, let's actually take a look at how we can manipulate the material. First, let's double click this one. And now width and height, it tells us this has the width of 3 feet and it has a height of 1 foot and 6 inches. So 1 foot and 6 inches and 3 feet wide. Okay, good. Now double click the object. So we select the, we go into edit mode, select this face, right click, and then look at there. There's actually a command, and the command texture position. Click it, and then when we rotate around, you see there is a texture projected onto it. Here we have 4 different pins. This pin is for distortion and scale and shear. And then this is actually for moving and rotation. So I can move this around to the center and I click somewhere outside. Let's zoom in and oh, you see there is a seam. Let's double click, select this face, right click, go back to position, and there we can now much better see what's actually happening. So this is actually our image, and then this are tiled results of this image. So if I do not want to see a seam, ideally I want to position this pointer at one corner, and then up here you see this is actually a little bit bigger. So what about, can I scale this? Yeah, I can, but now I'm actually distorting or I'm stretching this. So this is not really very good. Let's press escape and go outside one more time. And we do a little manipulation. This is our longest edge. This is 1 foot and let's say 7 inches. Very good. I measure this because from all other elements here, this is the longest length. And when I double click here, then there I can see 1 foot and 6 inches. Let's see what happens when we set this to 0. So just 1 foot or maybe 5 inches. You see how this actually starts to tile. Also, this number here, the width, is actually adjusting automatically. If I say this should be 3 inches wide, it really starts tiling really bad. This is a problem because we use just an image and we glue artificially this image over that face. Ideally, in real world perfection, we want to have an image of a texture, wood, fabric, or whatever that is equal the size of the geometry we try to texture. This is, however, very unlikely to happen, so we try to make it believable. So in our case, since we know this is 1 foot and 7 inches, I will say, okay, 1 foot 7 inches, which means then the width is 3 feet 2 inches. Okay. Now let's go back here to the select our object, double click, select this face, right click and position. And then when I drag this one down here to this corner, very good. And there you see actually the material, the image is a little bit higher because it was 7/8 of an inch. Very nice. Good. So that works pretty good. When we take a look at this face here, this is rotated. And this face is rotated too. This is horizontal, this is horizontal. Maybe we want to go this the same way. To do this, very easy. Double click, select the face, right click, texture, position, and now we have to rotate this. So with this command, we can rotate and symmetrically scale it. You see there's actually this arc, and I can rotate and snap to the arc point, and then this way I only rotate, but I do not scale. This way I rotate and scale. And when I go to 90 degrees, it will snap to there, you see? And then I snap to this point, very good. And then this one, I can, for example, position to here. Very good. Very nice. So now I have this texture rotated. Let's do this down here. Double click, select the face, right click and position, and zip. I do this too. Where's the snapping point? There it is. Then I bring this one to there and click outside. Cool. Okay. Let's do this one more time down here. So you see, after you did this a few times, it becomes actually very intuitive. This texturing tool in SketchUp is truly well done. So very nice, but now we see, oh, this and this looks very similar. How can we actually customize this a little bit more? Here's a little trick. First, I can double click, select this face, texture and position. And if I take a look from the top, you see I have a little bit of left and right ability for the material and quite a lot forward and backwards. I do not need to have this point at this corner. I can just also slide this image maybe to there. So as you can see now, I'm using a different part of this image to texture my geometry. I just only want to prevent to have one of these like tile lines visible on the face. And there we are. You see now this is much better. This and this might be way too similar. So double click here, right click, texture, position, and unfortunately there's no kind of like flip command. So let's go back here to this position. So I could, if I want, rotate this one. And even here I can rotate and find the correct position and then bring this one to there. So you see now how this is kind of going the opposite direction. Okay, very nice. Here now we start having a problem of, well, this looks way too artificial. So let's see what we can do. Position. We have to be careful with the height here because we made this image nearly as high as the whole piece. So I can very carefully slide this to the left and the right. And maybe select a different part of that image. Okay, that's already better. Good. So next element. How do we fix this here? Let's double click. Select this face, right click, texture, position. So there we can see where we are. And then this we can bring to there. And then to make this look more believable, I rotate this and I try to have this rotation line go along this edge. You see now how the grain actually goes. Very good. Now, if I compare this to here, I would like the wood grain also to go up. Okay, so very easy. Select this face, position, bring this to maybe there, rotate this, and again, just make sure it has the right scale. And then here, it's so easy to just move this around, maybe there. Cool. And then go to here, double click this face, texture, position, and also here to there, and rotate, snap to the correct rotation point. There we are. Oh, here I did a mistake. I just rotated it straight up. This needs to be rotated a little bit so that it maybe follows actually the object cut line. Okay. And then I can move this around to give this a little bit of variation, or simply pick a different part of the wood texture. Maybe this one. Okay. Very nice. And you see, because this is all based, not based, because these are all components, what I do to one, the other component has it too, or the other three. Here, one more position. I will just rotate this one there, bring this to there. Okay. Very nice. Yeah. I can actually add multiple materials to my design. So let's say here the front, I would like to be a white or an orange material. So I could say new texture, or hold on, because I don't want to make a new image. What about I select this one? Look, I can actually say duplicate there. And let's say white paint. So it's like white glossy furniture paint. Very good. And here, double click. And how do I change the material? For example, texture. Now we don't want any texture there. Should be a color. Let's change this. So here, as you can see, I pick actually the color. We can also go with an RGB slider. Grayscale, RGB, CMYK. Very good. Now you see this is actually white. And then again, careful. We select the face in edit mode, and then we want to drag this one in there. Very nice. Cool. Let's actually go to the Windows side here. So it's pretty much, no, it's not the same. So you see here actually, there's no duplicate. We can actually edit the material here. We have the color adjuster. So that works. We can make a new material and simply here specify There should be a color wheel. We can specify the color, give this a name, white, etc., and then click OK. So that part is actually easier solved on the PC side with the interface, and then actually on the Mac side. You also see, because this is a white backdrop, the white material is not really that functional. If I double click and then go to here and maybe change the color, you see how this updates very nicely. Okay, very good. Yeah, and honestly, that is pretty much everything in a nutshell about how to create a texture-based material in SketchUp, Mac, or PC, and then how we can set the scale of the image and apply this to individual faces, never the group and never the component, and then even rotate, etc. Now, if this, for example, is too big, so we set the height here to 1.7. Well, what happens when we set this height to 6 inches? Very good. So here now actually we will see a tiling, and that is not possible to prevent. But maybe let's see what happens when we go ahead and then position this to here. So we see actually it is also too short. So at least we need in here 1 foot 3 3/4, so 1 foot and 4 inches for the width. 4 inches there, very good. And then even you see, because we positioned the texture right at this corner, it flows actually really nicely. So we don't have to reposition it. There. This, for example, is an extremely handy tool when we have to texture a wood floor, or in a bathroom, let's say a tile floor, because then we can create a texture that is really, when the tile, let's say, is a 10-inch by 10-inch tile, we just make the material this way, and then when we add the texture to the floor, all the tiles really will be to scale 10-inch to 10-inch. And here in this case, we just used a wood material to texture the piece. Very good. That's it. To make this piece actually look really nice, we will go back and say, so this should be 1 foot and 7 inches for the height. Very nice. And then we can go to this object. This is actually just only an object. This is not a group. So I will select this, the group, double click, and then apply the material to each face. Very nice. Because actually the components share the same material, the problem that can be is that everything looks very similar. Pretty much it is exactly the same. You see the wood grain. There's something we can do about it, because this is the way how components work. But because these are actually groups, I have the ability now here for each group to modify what slice of material am I actually going to use. Now this looks kind of way too big, not very believable, but if I use a part of the image maybe more from here, yeah, this looks better. And then here I will use maybe an area up there of that image, and here I will use another area of the image. And then this way, when I use the same image as a texture, I randomize actually the parts I use, and this way create really a believable impression that each piece is really an individual wood element. Yeah, and this actually looks not too bad. In here in the back, there I might make this simply white. This actually, we might not really see the piece from down here, so I could actually do myself the favor and correct this. There, if I have the time. But again, one part about 3D modeling and rendering and texturing, stuff we don't see and that really doesn't show later. There's no point necessarily really to put in that level of correctness. Yeah, okay. So you see, with a little bit of cleanup, then we can create quite a nice and good looking textured result of this nightstand.